I think the Penguins did everything in their power to try to win that game. Okay. Joel Blomqvist did not help whatsoever.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Snipe and Score podcast. I'm Aiden Calkins. They call me Showtime around here. My co-host over here, I'll let him introduce himself.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Sean Wallace. I will be your co-host here with Showtimer. We got a few things to talk about today. Really excited to get into this, really dive deep into hockey. Let's see. I think we're starting off right now with our studs and duds of the week. Aiden, what do you got?
So we're going to do, as Sean said, we're going to do our studs and duds of the week. Something that we're going to do, it's going to be way too long to try to keep up with everything every NHL team does throughout the week. So we're going to limit it down to like 2 or 3 studs, 2 or 3 duds, and then a hot team and who is not. So I'm going to go ahead first and go with my studs. Some of you may know because of the sweatshirt I'm wearing. I'm a huge Buffalo Sabres fan, so out of the gate, number 1, Rasmus Dahlin. He's my stud. He had 2 goals, 2 assists in 2 games. He had 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points, 2 games this week. All that came against the Rangers and the Sabres 8-2 win on Tuesday. And then they obviously won last night against the Ducks in a comeback win. My other stud that I have is one of the most underrated forwards in the game. Doesn't get enough love because he's always playing under McDavid, and that's Leon Draisaitl. He had 3 goals and 4 points in 3 games this week after the break from 4 Nations. I just thought he's been really good coming out of the break. Unfortunately, Edmonton's had some goalie issues here recently, so they haven't really got the wins that they've wanted. Maybe something to look forward in a future segment we might talk about. But yeah, that's my 2 studs for this week. We'll go over to Sean for his 2 or 3 studs.
All right, got 2 studs for you. So first, we're starting with the man, the myth, the legend, the great 8, Alex Ovechkin. Oh my goodness, are you kidding me right now? This guy came off a broken leg. Here he is. I mean, I think he's leading the team in goals right now. I think it was Tom Wilson at one point. Now Ovi has that crown back, as he rightfully should. 32nd career hat trick over the weekend against the Oilers, as they won. I believe it was 7-3, something like that. I think so. Yeah. It was unbelievable. The guy's unreal. He's my stud for this week. The Capitals keep rolling. They lost to the Flames last night, but I think they have 2 regulation losses in the past 20 games or something like that. It's crazy what they're doing. Second stud, we're going to go with Quinton Byfield. This guy had 4 assists against the Knights. I think this was a statement win for the Kings. A team that's been struggling a little bit in the playoffs the past few years. I think a guy like Quinton Byfield can really propel them in the playoffs, no doubt. I think he definitely proved that against a good team like the Golden Knights. I think he's going to be definitely an X factor come playoff time for the Kings. They're really going to need someone like him, especially because the past 10 years, I mean, what have the Kings done in the playoffs since they won the Stanley Cup? They really need to break the cycle of bad luck because they're a talented team. They have it all. I think they have enough to go far. Do
you want me to answer that question, what they've done ever since they made the playoffs after winning the Cup?
Sure, go ahead.
Losing to Edmonton.
There you go.
Or San Jose.
There you go.
Back when the Sharks were good and not in the toilet.
So if Quinton Byfield can have a game like he did against the Knights in the playoffs, I think the Kings can probably go somewhere in the playoffs. They need more of those games. They can't just fold in the playoffs. They're too talented of a team to do that. Moving on to my next stud, it's a team, the Winnipeg Jets. Are you serious right now? 10 straight wins. This team, they haven't slowed down. Hockey. Yeah, they're unreal. They really are unreal. Not much more I can say about the Jets. 10 straight wins. They're crazy. Go ahead. Who are your duds?
So we're going to get my hot team out of the way here as well. I kind of mentioned already. Buffalo Sabres. I know they're last in the Eastern Conference, but if you look at their stats, they have a 6-game home win streak. They are 7-3 in their last 10 games. They're coming on at the right time. Unfortunately, their 13-game losing streak in November and December is kind of killing any chance they have at the playoffs. It's still there. Not very, likely, but, it took a miracle in 2011 to make it, and it's going to take a miracle in 2025, but they're hot, and they play Carolina tomorrow night. It's going to be an interesting game since they're not a very great road team, but, yeah, first 6-game win streak since 2018 where they won 10 straight in November, so... and my other stud, honorable mention, the great Rob Ray. If you do not know who Rob Ray is.
I was going to say.
If you do not know who Rob Ray is, do your research, man. He's like Sabres legend. He didn't put up the points. That dude fought. And he beat the holy shit out of you every time he played. And this trooper, he got hit with a puck in the face last year against the defunct Arizona Coyotes and stayed in the game. Well... if you get a second, go look up Sabres vs. Rangers and the highlight from Rob Ray because he took a puck square in the face, and guess what? That trooper stayed in there and called the rest of the game from the box. And to top it all off, he called the Sabres game Tuesday last night from the 300 levels while eating a hot dog and popcorn just because he's a goat. So shout out to Rob Ray. For my duds, the first one's kind of funny because it's just stupid. My first dud's Trevor Zegras, Ducks forward. He's been suspended in my notes for being a jerk. He got suspended 3 games for a high interference call on Michael Rasmussen forward for the Detroit Red Wings. And, yeah, just don't hit people in the head.
Yeah, you know what? I'll add this. The Ducks, they're struggling enough as it is. Trevor doesn't need to propel them even farther down.
No.
I mean, come on, Trevor. Let's wake up. I mean, the Ducks need something that's not going to get you anywhere, Trevor. Come on.
Well,
so Ducks need something. That was not what they needed.
And the issue is with the Ducks is they're playing solid hockey. The issue is that stuff like that, they're losing one of their better players who I think we can both agree, Sean, who is underperforming severely.
Well, that's very true, but I'll say this about the Ducks. Yes, they have been playing good hockey as of recently, but they haven't made the playoffs since 2017. That's not going to happen again this year. And you know what? Listen, you can come back to me when playoffs roll around. Maybe they will make the playoffs. I doubt it. Maybe they'll surprise me. But as of right now, this is not what they needed. The Ducks need something, and what Trevor Zegras did. I mean, come on, man. Let's be real.
I think Anaheim will finish over 500, not by much, be like 1 or 2 games, but because they've gotten better. Carlson's gotten better. That and McTavish has been phenomenal for them, and Miantikov is starting to come along, and Lucas Dostal is the reason why John Gibson's going to be on the door here soon. But
yes,
but Zegras is one of the guys on this roster that top 15 pick in 2019, I think, and he's not performing as well. My other dud, Bruins goaltender Jeremy Swayman. He went 0-2 this week with a .863 goal save percentage, which if you guys don't know hockey, is quite terrible.
Hey, I wonder if they're taking notes on a certain goalie that plays for the Senators right now.
I forgot his name. He used to play for the Sabres as well. I had a nickname for him that I can't say on air.
Come on, Boston. Come on.
But yeah, they lost to who did they lose to? Real quick, I'll go into my little Google machine here. I wonder who they. I think they lost to. I know they lost to Toronto last night, 5-4 in overtime. And Sean, would you like to repeat what lead they had in that game?
No, you go ahead.
They had so if you don't know Leafs, they played the Leafs last night, and if you don't know Leafs lore, 2015, I think.
I don't know what it was, but I can tell you the score because I do remember.
So
it now.
A series back in the mid 2000s. I'm sorry, we'll get the stats here in a second. They were down 3-1 in the series against Boston. They came back and tied it, and Game 7 was in Boston. It was 2012. It's 2012, pretty sure. I'll look that up real quick just to double check. But as I'm rambling, so they lost. So cleared up. They lost 3-2 to Anaheim in overtime, and they blew a 3-0 lead in the first period to lose to Toronto 5-4 in overtime. Mitch Marner had the OT winner there, and a beautiful goal. And Anthony Stolarz for Toronto stole that game for him. But the gist is they had Boston almost blew this lead against Toronto. Yeah, there it is. And Toronto was up 4-1. With 12 minutes to go in the third period, Milan Lucic started it. Bergeron tied it in regulation. And Patrice Bergeron broke their hearts and ended it in overtime, meaning the Leafs blew a 4-1 lead in the third period of Game 7, round 1, I believe, to lose. And TD Garden has haunted the Leafs because the last 4 times the Leafs have played Boston in the playoffs, that would have been 2012, 17, 18, and then last year, they have lost to them in Game 7 in Boston after the Leafs have come back and even the series. So it's actually pretty funny that the Leafs actually get to do to Boston what Boston's done to them all this time. And my last dud is a team, and it's kind of funny. I feel bad, but I don't, if you know the Blackhawks history as of recent years. It's the Blackhawks. They are 2-6-2 in their last 10. Connor Bedard is not saving them, and I think Seth Jones had a pretty damning post-game interview last night. They lost to Utah 2-1, where they had 93 shot attempts, and they lost 2-1 in overtime. And Seth Jones pretty much said that this Blackhawks team is just, it's not progressed at all through the year. It's stayed the exact same. And Seth Jones is a guy that's possibly getting traded. I can tell he wants his way out. So, yeah, Blackhawks not looking good. I just saw a stat today that Connor Bedard has had 36 different line combinations this year.
Wow. Yeah, that's not going to help out. That is not going to help him out.
That is a great way to ruin a generational player, which
Absolutely.
is what they're trying to do. I think the dumbest thing they could have done was when they traded Taylor Hall early in the year, but that's just me. So, over to you, Sean. Who do you got for your duds this week?
Well, to your point about the Leafs and the Bruins game, I believe the score was, I think it was 3-0 with 6:29 left in the second. Yeah. So, I mean, come on, guys.
And Boston, even after Toronto tied at 3-0, David Pastrnak, forward for the Bruins, one of the best goal scorers in the league, gave them the lead in the third period.
Yeah.
And then they allowed a goal into, I think it was Holmberg. Is it Holmberg? Yeah, Holmberg, I think is who his name is.
Yeah, that gives me not that it had like any sort of like meaning, but that gave me Super Bowl 51 vibes with the Falcons and Patriots. That was, I mean, that was bad. That was a bad lead.
Yikes.
Yeah, bad lead break.
Anywho.
And then about the Blackhawks, they are going to have a couple guys on the trade block coming up the deadline to no one's surprise.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, and I think the real question is with the Blackhawks, what are you going to get at the trade deadline? Especially with, I mean, do they really have much to offer besides Donato and Jones? I mean, who's really going to be interested? And let's say this, even if they do trade Seth Jones, they're going to have to take, I think, a good part of his contract.
Oh, it's 100% going to be 50% retained by somebody. By them, so.
And at what cost? You're trading a pretty good defenseman, retaining a salary for what? I don't know, maybe a decent pick in the draft, but it's not going to be much.
No.
So
I think there's a couple of guys we're forgetting that might have, like, I can see them trading Nick Foligno, maybe, if they get the right price for him. I think another guy that's not being mentioned a lot that should be for Blackhawks trade market, and we'll get to the trade deadline stuff here in a bit, Connor Murphy.
Yeah, that's an interesting
big
one.
Big right shot defenseman. I think he's expiring this year. If he's not expiring this year, it's next year. And there's teams that could value that, and right-handed defensemen nowadays are a premium.
That's true, and I think with a team like Chicago, I think they're willing to get rid of anyone. I don't think Connor Murphy, I'm sure that's someone they'd like to keep, but at the same time, if someone offers a good price for Connor Murphy, I don't think it's an offer.
If you get like a second or third rounder from say I don't know, a team that needs defense right now, like I don't know, Boston because they just lost Lindholm, or I was gonna say Dallas because they always add defensemen, but I think they're pretty solid in the back end. Maybe the Rangers, because the Rangers are making a push and they just lost Fox for a while.
Yep.
Maybe they offer like a second, or if they're that desperate, they offer a first. Like I don't see any world why you wouldn't take that. Like it's just, I think it's logical sense, and it's gonna be a struggle for the Blackhawks, and I forgot what their GM name is. That really don't matter to me because I don't care at the second, but we'll figure it out when we get there. But yeah, it's gonna be a struggle for the Blackhawks. But anywho, your duds, Sean.
All right, my duds. Starting off with Joel Blomqvist.
Joel Blomqvist, yes.
Okay, so this guy, right? I think everyone in Pittsburgh, no one really wants to tank, but the way Joel Blomqvist has played, especially over the weekend against New York, it's almost like he wants a guy like Misa or a guy like Hagens, right? I mean,
I do.
So, with Joel Blomqvist, if I recall correctly, look, Pittsburgh at the end of the second period had about 31 shots on goal against New York.
Yep.
New York had 6. I think they had 6 shots on goal.
I think it was like 6. Because I was tracking it. Yeah, it was like 6 or it was like 10, and they were tied. And no, the Rangers were winning.
Yeah, and then who do you think won that game, Aiden? Who do you think won that game?
Well, it's funny because Pittsburgh was up 3-2 at that point, and then. Yeah.
And then Joel Blomqvist happened. So that's why he's my dud of the week, Aiden.
Well, is it that Joel Blomqvist happened, or did the Rangers decide to actually play hockey again?
I think, okay, let me put it this way. Now, I think the Penguins did everything in their power to try to win that game.
Okay.
Joel Blomqvist did not help whatsoever. In my opinion, there's not much more you can do. If you have 16 shots on goal, right, if you're the Rangers, there's absolutely no way you should win that game. There's absolutely no excuse where you have a team like the Penguins playing in that same game. They shoot, what 35 shots on goal.
Something like
it's
that.
just there's no excuse to lose that game if you're the Penguins. I credit that to Joel Blomqvist. That loss was on him.
Much less allow probably 4 goals. Because I'm assuming the fifth one was empty netter. So.
Right. So I think the final score is 5-3. Yes, I think Blomqvist was. I think he was 11 for 15 on shots on goal. I believe that's what that was. That's inexcusable. That's why the Penguins lost that game. There's not really much more you can do to win that game. I credit that to Joel Blomqvist.
Yeah, not great.
Next one, we're going to actually the goalie on the opposite side of the net that game, Igor Shesterkin. Not that he was bad in that particular game, but it was the game before that where he let in 8 goals against the Sabres.
6.
Okay, my apologies.
5. Sorry, my bad. It was 5.
See, okay, I actually didn't even know he got pulled. Thank you.
Hang on. What period did he get pulled in? That's the big part.
I actually don't know. I don't know.
He got pulled in the first period.
Did he really? See, I didn't know
5
that.
goals, and he got pulled in the first.
I saw the final score was 8-3, and I assumed they kept him in the entire game.
It is the second time this year he has been pulled by against the Sabres.
I assume you just keep your goalie in net no matter how bad he's doing because you're paying him $11.5 million a year
for the next
8 years. Right. So, I find it kind of funny that all these guys, and it's not even just the NHL, but all these guys, do some sing and dance routine in the offseason about how much money they want. They get their bag, and then they do nothing from there. So come on, Shesterkin, get it together. They need you. The Rangers are struggling right now. We just can't have the games like those.
No, we can have it.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe from a Sabres perspective, but if you're a Rangers fan, not like me. But if you are a Rangers fan, that's one you just got to have.
Yeah,
right?
why are you promoting the Rangers to get better? You're a Capitals fan. You should be happy seeing them suffer.
Well, I'm not
right
promoting
now.
the Rangers getting better. Believe me, by no means. Believe me, Igor, keep it up as from a Capitals fan. But from a Rangers perspective, or if you're a fan, you just can't have games like those. It's inexcusable.
It's not good.
No offense, Aiden, but especially to a team like the Sabres. Sorry.
I'll get my comment later. It's okay.
Oh boy, I'm scared.
You should be.
All right, let's see. We got our studs. Anything else you want to add? We can mention Rob Ray. He was our honorable mention.
Yeah, you mentioned him. I think we got Rob Ray enough. I mean, that he's just he's a beautiful person. He's a beauty.
Well, next week I believe we have 9 more days left until next Friday, which is the NHL trade deadline.
Yeah.
Anybody you see getting moved for sure? Any candidates you want to mention?
I think that Brandon Tanev gets moved 100%. He is a bottom 6 speed energy guy for the Seattle Kraken. I 100% see him getting moved. He's got 1 year left on that deal, and he's gonna get a premium return from somebody. I think one of 2 teams will probably be in the market, and you're gonna see a very good trend of like bottom 6 guys that I think are probably gonna go to specific places. They're all gonna be the same. I've got Tanev going to Washington on my list, but I could also see him going to Tampa. We've seen Tampa do it forever. They did Barclay Goodrow. They did Nick Paul. They've got another guy from San Jose, Mikey Easymont, Tanner Janot. That one didn't work out, but regardless, like they just have a knack of finding these bottom 6 guys that are like solid players and turning them into guys that get them long playoff pushes. So I think Tampa could be a stretch because they always love having depth and they probably could use it. And then Washington, because you're a Capitals fan and you've said it, Washington needs bottom 6 depth, especially on that 4th line. I think Tanev would be a really good guy for the PK, good speed energy guy, and he'll be a good worker for whoever gets him. But I think Brandon Tanev 100% gets moved.
No, yeah, 100%. I'm not necessarily sold on Tanev absolutely getting moved. I think Seattle will only move him for the right price. I think he's probably a guy they want to keep, especially on their bottom 6.
What do you think that price is going to be?
I don't know. I think Seattle, if you get anything less than a 3rd-round pick for Tanev, I'd say don't pull that trigger. I'd say you'd really need a 3rd or a 2nd to get rid of Tanev, in my opinion. I know he's older, but I think he's too valuable of a guy to move, especially on your bottom 6. I think he really keeps that whole squad together.
I think I'm going to pull up the list here. Thanks BR or Bleacher Report here. They're going to have a list because I'm also going to look at here that we're going to kind of use some stuff. We got some notes here, but obviously it doesn't hurt to look. Yeah, I think a 3rd. I think they get a 3rd rounder minimum. If a team really wants them, I think they get a 2nd. I mean, we saw Tanner Janot get traded for a 1st, so I mean,
right.
Who knows? If some team's desperate enough, I think that they'll do it. Do you have anybody that you're for sure thinking is going to get moved here?
For sure. If I'm being honest with you, obviously there are going to be people that are going to be a surprise. There's going to be people that you say, okay,
didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, exactly. The one guy, honestly, out of the list that I have that I know for sure is going to get moved is Brock Nelson. I don't see how Brock Nelson doesn't get moved to the deadline. I think he's for sure heading out. I guess
currently number 1 on most big boards to get on available targets.
And I guess the big question is for what and to who. Right now, the team that I have him going to is Minnesota.
I like that.
I think Minnesota could use...
especially since they just lost Eriksson Ek.
Exactly. I think Minnesota could use a bottom 6 rental for the season. I think Brock Nelson's that guy. He's definitely going to contribute on the that 3rd or 4th line or wherever he goes. I think he'll fit in quite nicely as well. I think Minnesota could definitely use Brock Nelson.
I can see them putting him on the 2nd line and moving Freddie Gaudreau down to the 3rd line.
I don't know about that. I think, especially with Brock Nelson's age, I don't know if he'd fit well right in there in the top 6.
Put him between Boldy and what? Maybe who would you put him between Boldy? Because you're gonna have Zuccarello.
Yeah, I think that's one where I think time will tell. I think if he starts off like that, like a rocket, I don't see that happening. I think he'll just slide in nicely into the bottom 6.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think Nelson's gonna get moved. I think it'd be smart for the Islanders to move him. I think my surprise guy getting traded, and this is really going to kind of blow you out of the water when I say this, it's also another Islander. I think Noah Dobson gets moved.
Hell no. No,
you
not
say
happening.
You say hell no.
No.
But we've seen the Islanders do stupid stuff in the past.
This one I don't think is going to happen.
I could see it. Because, as I mentioned earlier, right-handed defensemen are a premium, and Noah Dobson is underperforming a little bit. He's got a decent... If a team could get him to perform, that contract he has is going to make like a bandit. It's going to be a great deal for he could be a top 2 right-handed defenseman for if he hits his potential. And I mean he's a little older, but not older, but like for like he's in his mid-20s. But I think that Dobson gets moved, like just like when they traded Devon Taves to Colorado because they just couldn't re-sign him. I think this Islander team needs a shakeup desperately. Like, I mean, they signed Duclair in the offseason. That's not really a needle mover. No offense to Anthony Duclair. He still is like a decent top 9 winger, but he's a good goal scorer. But like, he's not the Anthony Duclair that scored 30 goals a few years ago. Like, he's not that guy anymore. They've really like, named their forwards outside of Matt Barzal and Bo Horvat. That's like that make a difference on this team. Like Anders Lee, he's older. He's not going to do much. Nelson's probably going to get traded. Like,
right.
They really don't have any prospects in the system. That, like, I mean, Holmstrom's been good, but they really don't have anybody like in the system. Like, they got Yzerman, but there's question marks with him how he's gonna be. I mean, kind of like Caulfield was, so I guess maybe that might work out. But like, they really don't have anything in the system that like is like eye popping for like prospects. So, like, oh yeah, he's gonna come up and they're gonna be like. I mean, Siplikov has been good for him,
but that's exactly why I don't think they're gonna sell at the deadline. I don't think they have anyone to replace anybody with. So to your point, I can definitely see them as a dark horse for a team that's gonna do a fire sale at the deadline, right? I think the only guy realistically that they're like, I don't know, maybe more than 50% chance gonna ship off is Kyle Palmieri. But
100%.
If you trade a guy like Noah Dobson, I wouldn't give up on him quite just yet, even if you are gonna sell. Well, okay, I won't say that, but if you're gonna ship off a guy like Dobson, then you probably have to think of shipping a guy off like Anders Lee. I don't think that's going to happen. I know New York, they've seen better days, but I don't think it's quite time. I don't think it's a good time just yet to ship off a guy like Dobson or Anders Lee. So Palmieri I can see, but otherwise, yeah, I wouldn't ship off those guys just yet that we just mentioned. Not yet, at least. Now is not the time.
So, I do have Palmieri on my board. Again, another spot. I think Tampa would be a good spot for him.
I actually think Ottawa could be a dark horse
Really?
for Palmieri. Only because I think...
You think Ottawa's going to buy the deadline?
Oh, yeah. No, 100%. I think Ottawa's going to be desperate at the deadline. Their fans are in shambles. I think it's time.
Spot.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I think this is the time to start buying at the deadline. If they're in a playoff spot, I think they're going to want to add some firepower to make some kind of playoff push. Their fans are desperate for it at this point. This is the first time they've seen some good success in a long time.
Since 2016?
Like 2018 maybe.
16.
I think weren't they in the conference finals with Pittsburgh?
Yeah, 16.
Was that 16 or
16.
18? Oh, okay. Oh, no, it wasn't 18 because the Caps won the Cup. Wow, okay.
For sure. No, it was the year after, so 17. My bad.
Okay, it was 17.
17.
I mean, coming from a Caps fan, it's pretty disgraceful that I said 18, given the fact that the Caps were
won the Cup.
Not playing the Senators in the playoffs. So,
yeah, I mean,
no, I think Palmieri gets shipped to. Listen, he can get it. He can go anywhere, but I'll say Ottawa's my dark horse. I think Ottawa is going to need some firepower for anything forward related.
No,
they could really use someone like that.
Sean's not going to like this next answer.
Oh,
it's okay. Ricard Raquel.
Yeah, if you say Ricard Raquel is getting shipped to Washington,
no.
Okay, good. All right,
he's getting sent to Buffalo. Now, you're going to dispute this by saying I'm a delusional Sabre fan. Can make you face the camera? Be my guest. Lay it on the social media page.
Well, actually, do you want Buffalo to trade for Ricard Raquel?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Wow. Why is that?
Well, he's a veteran forward which we need terribly. Granted, this core is starting to, learn how to play hockey, finally. But they need another veteran guy, Kevin Adams, in this top 9. And I think Ricard Raquel would slot perfectly in that top 9 with Ryan McLeod as a center. And he shouldn't cost that much. I love Peyton Krebs, but I'm sure that they could flip Peyton Krebs out and probably a draft pick. Or even, if anything, they've got enough prospects in the system that they could flip the prospect and get Raquel.
Okay, so I don't doubt the fact that they could ship out Krebs, but I will tell you this. You're not going to like my answer, but I don't think, for as hot as they are right now, Buffalo should not be buyers at the deadline.
They 100% should be.
No, why?
Well, because if you
They're nowhere near a playoff spot.
That's okay, so you let me some logic here. They're not buying for the playoffs this year. They're buying for the next year. That's
okay,
why. Listen, Raquel's got like 2 years left on his contract. 2 or 3 years left. They need to acquire guys that have veteran experience that have multiple years left in their deal.
Okay, but out of all the players at the deadline, I probably would not go for Ricard Raquel, though. If you're truly looking for someone for your future, I know you're looking for a veteran guy, but that might be through someone like free agency. I wouldn't jump the gun on someone like Ricard Raquel.
Nobody wants to go to Buffalo, so their best way to get a veteran guy is to trade.
But to be fair, I don't think Rickard Rakell is the answer if Buffalo's ever going to make a push in the future. I think there are better options. I don't think Rickard Rakell is the answer for Buffalo at the deadline, especially looking for the future. He's a little older, I know, but what does he really have to offer if Buffalo's going to make any sort of push in the future?
Scoring. You can still score, and that's what they need right now. They need guys that can score because they're desperately missing a top 6 winger right now because Dylan Cousins, as many Sabre fans know, has been very underwhelming this year.
That's true.
Jack Quinn as well. I mean, granted, the third period last night, they looked like they were 2023, 2022 form again, which is great. Like, if we can get that every night out of them, then I'd be like, hey, Rickard Rakell, fine, pass. But until I can see consistent play out of our top 6 forwards, I'm not talking about, like, Thompson's fine, Tuck is fine, Paterka's fine, he's fine. Like, Jordan Greenway, he's more of a third-line guy, but he plays good with Thompson and Tuck, and he usually gets the most out of his lines anyways, but they need another top 6 guy. And they need to get a veteran alongside. Like, I mean, Jason Zucker's been fantastic, but I don't know if they're going to extend him. I hope they extend Zucker. He's been excellent. I know he'll be 33 next year, but, give him a couple-year deal at $5 million, and we're all happy because, again, another veteran guy. But I think Rakell short-term would be really good, especially, his contract's not that terrible. I'm looking at it right now. It's $5 million for the next 3 years. He's only 31, so he'll be turning 32 this year, so he'll be 34 when the contract expires. So it's not terrible. And if anything, push comes to shove, it doesn't work out, you deal him next year. So, or 2 years after that. I think it'd be a really smart ad for them to get Rickard Rakell.
I think the contract is just a little too big, in my opinion. Now, maybe as of right now, but looking at how the cap number is probably going to go up in the next few years.
Oh, it's going to be a monster jump next year.
Right. So with that being said, maybe it doesn't look that bad in the future, but as of right now, I'm telling you, I'm not sure if Rickard Rakell of all forwards is the answer for Buffalo in the future. I think there could be better options. We'll see. I think if they really do trade for him, I'm sure Kyle Dubas would love to trade him.
100%. Dubas' job is on the line, in my opinion. I know they just signed him, but they need to make some moves here.
I wouldn't say that just yet. I think he's a good drafter, but he definitely, no doubt, has made some questionable decisions. And actually, I want to get to him in a little bit. But finishing up on your Rickard Rakell point, I think Dubas would. I think the Penguins are sellers at the deadline. Why would they be buyers? Let's be honest. I think they have a few guys. I don't know who'd be interested in really a whole lot of people that they have. But one guy that I want to get to next, who's on the block for the Penguins this trade deadline, his name has been brought up in multiple articles that I've read, is Erik Karlsson. Now, Erik Karlsson's a good defender, don't get me wrong, but realistically, I see this guy popping up in trade talks, but who's going to want to trade for him? Who's taking that contract? I don't think Kyle Dubas is going to want to trade Erik Karlsson and retain salary. But honestly, he dug his own grave. That's the problem with Kyle Dubas. This is what I'm talking about with the questionable decisions he's made as the president.
His trade.
I believe it was. It wasn't. No. It wasn't Hextall.
I'm pretty sure it was Hextall.
It wasn't Hextall. It was the first year Dubas was there, and he traded for Erik Karlsson. It was.
Well, maybe it was.
100%.
Yeah.
It was actually one of the first trades he made in his first offseason with Pittsburgh.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. Yep.
So, even though Erik Karlsson looks good on paper, his contract is just way too big. There's absolutely no way that anyone's trading for this guy, even if his name does pop up in, the trade deadline. It's just, I don't see anybody taking on that contract. So, like I said, I don't doubt that Kyle Dubas is a good drafter. I think Hextall put him in a really bad position. And I think the Penguins kind of expected Dubas over the last couple years to kind of dig them out of this hole that they're in. But what has he really done to put the Penguins back on the map? I think he's only making the situation a lot worse. They have one of the worst prospect pools. I think they're below the cap if I remember correctly. Yeah. The Penguins, they're struggling. They really are. They need something. They need to start doing something.
Who's their top prospect, McGroarty? Because they traded Jaeger for him.
I think
to
so.
Winnipeg.
Yeah, I think it is McGroarty.
He got the brake speed off of him in the AHL a couple days ago.
But after McGroarty, who else were we looking at? Exactly. And I'm telling you, the Penguins are struggling. And as a Caps fan, I like that.
About the Rickard Rakell point. I don't think that Buffalo's going to trade for him. I think Buffalo's going to stand pat at the deadline. They might make a couple minor moves, but I don't think they're going to do anything. I think that they're going to re-sign Greenway, who's another guy that has been rumored. I don't think they move Cousins. I don't think they move Byram. I think if they move Byram, that would be stupid of them Not even as a Sabres fan bias, just as just pure, flat out, just like I think it'd be stupid.
No, I 100% agree with that, especially after trading Middlestat last season.
They made out like bandits in that deal because Casey Middlestat has been very underwhelming this year for.
Oh yeah, 100%. But I think if you get a steal like that, and then trading Bowen Byram.
I forgot about him. They've got Tanner Howell in the minors too. I forgot about him. So he's another guy that could be. That's like another I'd say like an A-level prospect is him. But after that, I think that's about it.
So when you trade a guy like Middlestat to the Avalanche, obviously Middlestat hasn't been performing. I think it was obviously a huge steal for the Sabres. That being said, why would you trade a guy like Bowen Byram? I think he's a really important part of their future. If the Sabres are ever going to get better in the future, young defenseman, he's only going to get better.
He's been the Sabres' second best defenseman this year.
Yep. So that being said,
behind the obvious,
they'd have to. I think any team, I doubt Byram's going to get traded, but they'd have to give him up for a pretty hefty price.
Oh yeah, it'd have to be like, and I know this. He's been thrown around in these rumors, and I don't think it's going to happen. It'd have to be like an Elias Pettersson trade, which is not going to happen.
No one's doing that. Bowen Byram. If we come back to this podcast in 2 weeks and Bowen Byram is not a Sabre anymore, start growing palm trees, Adams, because it's looking rough. It really is looking rough.
Yeah. So we got a little bit of an issue on my end for tech. We'll be back in a second on my end with the recording, so let's just see Sean's face here for a second. But anywho, yeah. So yeah, I think that.
I think a guy like Bowen Byram is definitely staying. As far as sellers and buyers, I'm telling you right now, the Sabres should not be buying at the deadline. I don't know if they sell anybody. I think they stand pat, especially because they're so hot right now. I don't think they want to break it up. But moving on to a guy that I think would be a good Andrew Copp replacement in Detroit is, let's see, who do I have? Ryan Donato. I think that'd be a good pickup for Detroit. They need an Andrew Copp replacement. What do you think about Ryan Donato? I think the Blackhawks are getting rid of him.
To Detroit?
I do think he's. I think Detroit should look for Ryan Donato.
Well, I think that Donato to Detroit would be fine, to be honest. Personal opinion? Come on, Lordy. Yeah, I think that Donato to Detroit would be fine, but yeah, I mean, they especially with Copp getting injured here, I think that it would be definitely an asset they need because they got a lot of young guys, but they don't have a really lot of in the lineup, but they don't have a lot of guys at like veteranosity, and they're going to need it because they're also in a playoff spot to break that drought and whatnot.
Right, and I think the Red Wings, especially where they're at right now, the East is so tight. They're going to need some kind of push to get into the playoffs. They need to be buyers. I think their window this is it right now. I don't know how far they're going to go in the playoffs, but I think they should find some kind of firepower to make some kind of push. So I think, with Cobb being injured, I think I would look at Donato. I think that'd be a good addition. I think it makes him better even without Cobb. I think they should look at someone like him.
So if you want to go really quick, I pulled up the trade bait board. Do you want to go through the top, 20 guys on this board and just kind of give an idea where they might go?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So we already did Nelson. Realistically, where do you think Ricard's going to go if you see him getting dealt or not?
I don't. I don't see him being dealt. I don't think anybody – look, with this contract and his age, the Penguins would have to retain salary, and I don't think Dubas is going to want to do that. I don't think you're going to see Dubas making a whole lot of trades where he retains salary because the Penguins – that's the last thing they need right now, and I think Dubas would be very foolish to do that.
Next guy on the list, Carson Soucy, defenseman, Vancouver. I do have a place where I think he's going to go. I think if Boston decides to buy the deadline and make a push, I think he goes to Boston. Because they just lost Lindholm for the year, and they love their big, bulky defenseman, and that's what Carson Soucy is. And he's got 1 year left on that contract, or he's got a year left afterwards, so, they could probably find a spot from the bottom six for him. I think that Boston could be in a space for Soucy because they love their big defenseman, especially losing in Lindholm.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely agree with that. I think Soucy is someone Boston would look at, especially because they need help on that defensive side of the puck. One storyline that I do want to talk about because I think this is going to make or break the NHL trade deadline. We got to talk about Mikko Rantanen. As unrealistic as it sounds, they just traded Nietzsche's. was seemingly a pretty I don't know, maybe a stupid move right now because
Blockbuster.
Rantanen doesn't look like he's fitting in with Carolina very well right now, so that's why he's the subject of trade talks as of right now.
Which is really surprising to me because I thought you put him with Aho, who they're both from Finland. Like they know each other. Like they played for Team Finland for the Four Nations, which by the way was fantastic. Like, unfortunately, congrats to Canada.
Yeah, I definitely want to touch on that. First of all, I saw this one meme on Twitter where it's like, you got your flag football game for the NFL, you got your, skills challenge for the NBA, and then you have the NHL. We will die for our country. Yeah, I thought it was awesome.
That's great. And then you see Game 1 against Canada, and there's 3 fights in a minute. It was great. But Rantanen is not getting dealt, but I will say, hot take. We'll come back to this when if we do off-season stuff. He's not resigning in Carolina. I don't think he's going to.
Look, apparently there's a pretty strong offer right now on the board.
$100+ million 8 years, I think, is the offer.
Yeah, so why would you not take that? Listen, I think that's the biggest storyline right now, right? It's the fact that Rantanen isn't taking this offer even when I think, his price is only going to go down, especially because.
Do you want to know my reasoning why?
But look, he's not a good fit in Carolina right now.
That's why.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So why listen, you may reject this offer because you're not a good fit in Carolina right now, but I think Carolina is not being very smart in offering him this contract right now. But, if you're Mikko Rantanen, dude, $100 million is $100 million. Who cares if you don't fit in the system at this point, dude? I'm taking the money. I mean, I know you want to play good hockey, but I think Carolina, you have the best shot to win a cup. One of the best shots to win a cup in Carolina. So why would you not take the $100 million?
Yeah, just for my knowledge over here, how are we doing on time over there, Sean, since you'll have that?
We got 36 minutes.
Okay,
that's where we're at right now.
We got a little bit of time here to work with. I think another guy we should mention, and we already mentioned him earlier, Seth Jones.
So, actually, we talked about him earlier.
So he's making $9.5 million. He's 30. He's got 5 years left on that, and he's 30 years old.
So, similar to the point that I made with the Penguins and Raquel, the Blackhawks are probably going to have to retain salary if they trade Jones because of how big his contract is.
Oh, 100%.
I don't know who would want to take on that full contract, especially for the next 5 years I think he's under contract
I don't think that any competing team has cap space to do it. I think if they do this, it's probably what they're going to have to do with when Rantanen got traded. They're going to have a third party come in and take 25% of that cap. So it's even lower.
I think Jones was one of those dark horses just a couple days ago, in my opinion. I wasn't sold on him being traded at the deadline.
I still think he gets traded.
Well, now, especially, 48 hours later, of course I do, because as of last night, what he said in his post-game conference, 100%. He hates it in Chicago. I mean, he made that very known. He made that very clear. He does not like it in Chicago. He wants to win, and do you think Chicago and win belong in the same sense? I don't think so. So I think someone might be interested in Seth Jones. Whether or not he gets traded, I don't know. But I see Seth Jones on his way out of Chicago, whether it's this trade deadline or next offseason. He's going to want to leave.
I'm trying to think of teams that need a defenseman because that's, that are buyers is what I'm trying to think of. Because I'm going to go on another Bleacher Report here and see what they have idea-wise.
And then back to my point about Dubas, right? If you're Chicago, do you really at this point want to retain salary? I mean, how many contracts are they retaining salary for?
Chicago?
Oh, yeah.
Rantanen?
Yep.
Hall, maybe?
I don't think so. I think Hall's contract is with Carolina.
It could be. I'm not sure.
I could be mistaken, but
I don't really know who. Somebody's gonna definitely take a flyer on Jones.
Yeah, I'd be curious who, because it might. I think depending on how much salary
what? Actually,
Chicago retains, I think it could be good.
I lie. I do have an idea who and this is going to sound really dumb when I say it.
So I'll give you mine. You say yours first, but I have one in mind as well.
This is going to be really dumb when I say it, but logically it makes out cap-wise, and it makes out because they're fighting for his playoff spot.
I have one in mind too.
Utah.
Go ahead and say yours.
It would make sense for Utah.
Okay, that's not who I was going to say.
If you think I think that Jersey's hurt, and that's their best right-handed defense, because obviously they got Sergachev, who's been phenomenal for them this year. They need a big right shot defenseman. They need size. They are a small team. They need size on this team. Seth Jones is perfect because he gets a fresh start and he gets to compete with a bunch of kids, Clayton Keller, and I think it would work out perfect because Matthias Michelli has been getting scratched recently for the I don't say Coyotes for the hockey team.
Who's that? Who's that team?
I don't know. I forgot. They don't exist anymore, unfortunately. But for Utah, he's been getting scratched, and he's still a young, decent player. He could be a good top 9 piece for the Blackhawks. Like he'll play second line, top line minutes for him. Like I probably would assume besides Teravainen, but I think that definitely that. I think I could see that. I think Utah throws in like a second and a third Michelli, and they get Jones at like 25% retained because they got a lot of cap space to work with, and they don't have a lot of guys that got to resign because most of their guys are young or got contract extended already. So I think Utah could be a real sleeper for a lot of guys. Like I got Utah taking. I mean, just not thinking about it, I think that he could go there. He being Seth Jones. I think that if Nashville decides to blow it up after this year, not like blow it up, but like kind of sell some guys, like a Tommy Novak or, as I have on my list, Luke Shen. I think that Luke Shen would be another perfect fit for Utah because they need defensemen terribly.
I think I think the one guy that's more than likely to get traded at the deadline, especially because obviously the Predators probably going to be sellers. Really disappointing season. I really wonder what Trotz is going to do in the offseason. I'd be really curious because obviously they're probably the biggest disappointment in the entire league.
Everybody thought they were going to be cup contenders, and they're top.
No, I would have thought for sure they'd be making the playoffs. Here they are looking at Hagens. So the one guy that I think is probably more than likely out of Nashville by next week is Nyquist. I think someone's going to take a flyer on him.
Tell somebody he'll get like a third or a fourth.
Yeah, do $3 million. I think someone took a flyer on him. I think he's more than likely on his way out. I feel like no matter what anybody offers, I think Nashville will say, "See ya, Nyquist."
Oh, I agree.
Anybody else you want to add on the deadline list? I think we just about covered everyone.
Goalies, since we haven't got to it.
That's true. I forgot about goalies. Forgot about the position.
John Gibson.
I was gonna say, yeah, he's really the only one that I think is more than likely to get traded. I think the rest are kind of dark horse candidates.
I think everybody else is not even on a board.
That's what I'm saying. So I'd be really surprised if anybody else besides John Gibson gets traded for a goalie. Unless someone gets flipped for John Gibson.
So where does John Gibson go?
I couldn't tell you, man. Maybe okay. So out of all the teams I can think of right now, they're not really making a playoff push right now. It wouldn't surprise me if they make it. I'm lying. I think it would surprise me if they make the playoffs. How about Utah?
Really?
How about Utah?
Really?
It wouldn't surprise me. I think Utah, look, if you're Utah and you're trying to make a playoff push, right? I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I'll tell you this right now. Do you really feel confident with the room they have right now going into the playoffs with the goalies they have? Because I don't.
Yeah, I do.
You do?
I think very highly of Kirill Vejmelka. I think he's a really solid goaltender.
I'm not convinced.
And I think Connor Ingram can be really good as well.
Connor Ingram, definitely not. I will say Connor Ingram is probably going to fold in the playoffs, and I'm kind of feeling the same way about Vejmelka. I'm not confident at all in either of those. They've had their ups and downs throughout the entire regular season. They've shined in some moments, but when it comes time for the playoffs, you need someone. You need someone to try to propel you forward. I don't really know if John Gibson's going to do that, though, if I'm being completely honest. But I'd say if Utah looks at anyone for any kind of goalie, I'd probably say John Gibson's your best bet.
I could see it, but we'll see.
I think it would be a surprise, but gotta throw something out there for the pod.
I'll throw one out there. I think Detroit maybe.
Detroit, okay.
Granted, their luck with very expensive goaltenders recently has not been good. Hello, Ville Husso, who just got traded to Anaheim.
Yep.
But their tandem is not great.
Mm-hmm.
Who is their tandem? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't actually.
I'm gonna look real quick, but I know it's not like.
I'm trying to think. Why can't I think?
I was gonna say Nedeljkovic. He's in Pittsburgh.
Right. Yeah. That's who I immediately thought of too, and I thought, oh yeah, no, he's in Pittsburgh.
Is Kosa up? I don't think Kosa's up. That's their top prospect, but I don't
think so either.
Because Husso was their big fish that did not work. Let me see. Real quick. Let's see the roster this year. I think NHL.com. I love you. Let's see. It's Alex Lyon and Cam Talbot.
Lyon.
There it is.
Why can't I think of Lyon? I actually didn't know Talbot was in Detroit right now.
Talbot Lyon.
Lyon, I don't know how I didn't think of Lyon.
Talbot's had his moments where he's been really good, but he's 39 and that's his number, sorry. He's up there in age. I
think he's older than 39. I think he's pushing 40. He's up there. He's definitely up there. I'm actually surprised he's still in the league, if I'm being honest.
Find out right now. He is 20. He's 37.
He's that? Okay.
37.
Wow. Okay. I wouldn't expect him to be 37.
So he's kind of in his twilight, I'd say.
Yeah, 100%.
And Alex Lyon, he's a solid goalie. He's got a 902 this year, 11 wins, 32 games, a 240 or 2.74 goals against. Just not terrible. He's got average numbers, I'd say. They're average. I think he's playing a backup role, I think, right now. It's like they're average numbers. Talbot, let's see what his numbers are this year, just to make my theory here. Yeah, he's got 17 wins in 33 games, and he's almost got a 3 goals against, and he's got a save percentage just better than Lions at .906. So I think, that now that I think about it, John Gibson makes a lot of sense to Detroit. And again, they've got a lot of guys in the system that they could get rid of, that they could, trade and whatnot. Like, I could 100% see them trading Lyon for him because they're going to keep Talbot as a backup because of the veteran, and he's been in the playoffs before. So I could see John Gibson going to Detroit.
Yeah, it certainly would have surprised me. I think Detroit, especially, making a playoff push.
I think the only way it happens, though, is if they retain salary on him, which I think Anaheim would do because they've got a lot
Oh, yeah,
of teams,
100%. So. I don't think he's leaving without Anaheim retaining salary. I think they're going to have to do that.
I think that John Gibson would 100% probably be good to go to, probably Detroit. I think Detroit's a good spot for him.
John Gibson's also one of those guys just because of his contract, and I'm not really sure who else would actually need a goalie at the deadline.
So I'm trying to think too, like maybe Vegas, but
I don't know.
Hill and who's the backup there? Oh, you know who could?
Samsonov is the backup there.
Yeah, is it Samsonov?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe. I could see Vegas doing it because Vegas does one big pull every year because it's just Vegas. But
right, yeah.
I was gonna say Colorado, but Blackwood and who's the other one they have? Oh, they traded for Wedgwood, Blackwood and Wedgwood, the Woods. They've got Miles Wood, Blackwood, and Wedgwood. They got Wood Square or Wood Cube. They got cubed wood.
But moving away from goalies for 1 second, because I want to get to the player of the day. But Seth Jones, going back to Seth Jones, I will tell you this. So one dark horse to keep watch for Seth Jones. Look, they got a couple players on LTIR. I think they need another defenseman. Look out for Dallas.
Ooh.
I think Dallas might be interested in Seth Jones, especially, they're one of the better teams in the NHL. I think Seth Jones would really go far with Seth Jones.
I could see it because they have a tendency to trade for defensemen at the deadline.
It wouldn't surprise me. So, I think that would be a good addition. And
let's talk about the deadline before we get to our player.
And Seth Jones wants to win, go to Dallas.
Yeah. So our last little trade deadline piece we're going to do, and I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here because I'm going to do this into myself before we go to our random players of the day, which I think you guys will have fun with, is who is your surprise, like, oh my God, on the left field trade deadline guy that you think might get dealt?
Mikko Rantanen. For how bad he's doing in Carolina right now, I think he makes or breaks the trade deadline. Honestly, like the fact that they traded Niches for him and he's underperforming, they have a contract of apparently over $100 million on the table and he's not taking it. Yeah, I think this is a really, really interesting situation. I think it's the biggest storyline right now. In terms of what's going to happen next week, that's the one I'm really keeping an eye on. As unrealistic as it sounds, I'd really be curious to see what Carolina does with Mikko Rantanen. And like you just said, with the Kings of LTIR, Vegas always swings that totally unrealistic trade every year. Let's see if Mikko Rantanen goes to Vegas.
Let's pray that they don't.
Let's pray that doesn't happen. I really don't see that happening. I don't know why they would do that, but oh my gosh, can you imagine?
I don't want to. Stop it.
Me neither.
So mine might sound like it makes sense, but if Vancouver can't get this thing figured out, golly, I can't.
Don't say Pettersson. He's not getting traded.
It's not going to be Pettersson.
Okay, I was going to say.
As I lose my camera again over here.
Oh, don't say Brock Besser either.
That's exactly what I was
no
gonna say.
way they're trading either of those players.
Which is why
I think they would be very foolish.
No,
they would be very foolish after what they did last season to trade any of those two players
So
for no matter what price. Go ahead.
Besser is a free agent.
Right.
After this year.
They should re-sign him.
They should re-sign him. I agree. But
send him to Washington.
And once again, I apologize now to everybody, James, that has to edit this. I apologize. My phone is running out of storage, and I'll clean that up for next time. But, yeah, I mean, I think that Besser could get dealt. He's going to be the surprise one. Like, nobody saw Casey Middleton getting traded for Bowen Byron last year. Nobody saw that coming. That was like the big shock trade last year. I know Sabres fan bias. It's not, though. Like, who saw Bowen Byron getting traded last year?
Not me, but
nobody.
I'll tell you this. Well, yeah, obviously Noah did, but let me tell you this. Who do you think, if we're looking at the Bowen Byram trade from last year, who gets flipped for Brock Besser? Who would the Canucks maybe want? Would they really value a guy that high where they can flip him for Brock Besser?
Well, if you're saying Ottawa's going to make a push, there's your forward right there if they need scoring, especially since Pinto and...
No, but who are they going to flip? That's what I'm saying, though. Like, who's a guy around the league that you can see the Canucks flipping Brock Besser for? I just don't think it's going to happen. If we're comparing him to the
You know what?
Byram trade last year.
I do have a guy.
All right, who?
If they trade him to Ottawa, I can see Josh Norris going the other way.
There's no way that the Canucks take Josh Norris for Besser. I just don't see that happening.
Obviously, there's going to be more to that deal than that, but I
don't think the Senators, especially with Besser on the last year of his contract, I wouldn't give up any of those assets for a guy that could probably leave him for agency. I just don't think it's going to happen. Brock Besser, I'd be very surprised if Besser gets moved at the deadline. Same with Pettersson. There's no way.
I mean, that's why they're...
You can punch me in the face next time if one of those two get traded next time we're on the podcast. But
as I said, I don't think it's going
to happen.
This is why it's, our surprise guys that are going to get dealt, And
oh, yeah, I forgot that was the point of
that
this.
was the point of said segment. And again, I apologize to James and Ryan. We're not going to have probably my video for the rest of the time, but you'll have a good chunk of it from me.
Uh-oh. You're looking at my face.
It's okay. So, Sean, if you want to go ahead, we're going to do a random player of the day. And because Sean thinks I've got vast hockey knowledge, we're going to try to have Aiden guess it.
All right, here we go. Yeah, I'd never be able to guess any player that Aiden throws out at me. But here we go. All right, Aiden, listen up. Got a 27-year-old forward, currently plays in the league right now. He was drafted 46th overall in 2015 by the Pittsburgh Penguins. All right?
Okay.
After he played for the Penguins, he went to Anaheim. From Anaheim to Washington. From Washington to Seattle to Detroit to Vancouver, and then
I already know who this is.
I think you know who it is, too.
It's Daniel Sprong. It's Daniel Sprong. As soon as you said Seattle, I'm like...
Yeah, I had a feeling you'd get it. I wanted to name a really obscure player and see if you get it. It is Daniel Sprong. I didn't even have to mention his stat line this season. His 19 games with 2 goals and 3 assists for Aiden to get it. I had a feeling you'd probably get a good hint once I told you where he's been, especially once I mentioned Seattle. So congratulations, Aiden.
So Daniel Sprong. What time are we at here? How much time we got left on this?
We're at 51 minutes.
Okay, so we got a couple seconds to talk about Daniel Sprong. He was a very high-end prospect for Pittsburgh when he first came in. He was going to be a scorer, and he didn't really do it, and he kind of went somewhere else. And I think Vancouver and Seattle predominantly, and he started scoring and then just kind of lost it over the last couple of years. I think that Sprong is
right. And from a Caps fan, right? I really didn't even think he was that bad on the bottom 6 in Washington at all. I was kind of surprised when we moved him. He isn't. I don't think he's that bad of a player at all. I think if he's given a chance somewhere else on a rebuilding team, I think he can make some noise. I think he's a sneaky good player. He's only 27, actually. I would have thought he'd be much older, but I think I don't think he'd be a bad bottom 6 guy for wherever he goes. That's our player of the day. Anything else you want to add, Aiden?
Yeah, we're gonna get Aiden's random player of the day here, which mine's gonna be a lot more obscure than Sean's is probably, unless he decides to do a little more research than I do. So this guy, he played for Pittsburgh for 3 years. He was on, I think, both of their cup-winning teams. And then he went to the Islanders, and then he's out of the league. He hasn't been in the league for a while. I think he's retired now. He scored 18 goals in the league. He had 54 points. Sean hates him, even though he doesn't hate him because he doesn't know who he is. But he hates him because of Pittsburgh in the years that they knocked out Washington in the second round. He is German forward Tom Kuhnhackl.
I totally forgot he existed until you said his name.
And this is why we're going to do this, because I want everybody now to go look up who Tom Kuhnhackl was, because he's got a couple goals that are like, he did that? Go look it up. Go look up Tom Kuhnhackl on YouTube.
I totally forgot Kuhnhackl existed.
Tom Kuhnhackl was a very decent bottom 6 forward for a couple of years for a couple teams. So Tom Kuhnhackl is my random player of the day. I think there's a poll that a lot of people are like, who? And diehard Pittsburgh fans, if you watch this, will be like, yeah, that makes sense. I remember Tom Kuhnhackl. But yeah, we'll fix this camera stuff for next time. I promise, guys. I'm sorry, it's the first one. I mean, it makes me look like an idiot, but it's fine. Anywho, thank you everybody for tuning into the Snipe and Score podcast. We are officially under the After Sports umbrella, which you're so thankful for Ryan and James and everybody else that works with them.
Huge shout out to Ryan and James. Thank you very much for letting us on the Afterthought Sports YouTube channel. Really appreciate it. Happy to be on board. Hopefully we'll get you more podcasts out in the near future. We'll talk about what happened at the trade deadline in a couple weeks. Yep. We'll give out some grades and we'll see how everyone did.
One we will definitely talk about every single team and what they did and what they did not did. So
100%.
But again, for myself, I am Showtime Aiden Calkins. My co-host Sean Wallace. Thank you for being here with the wonderful insight and for calling me an idiot Sabres fan. We always appreciate it. Until next time, we'll see you after the trade deadline. So thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a good one.